Hey Shimmy fans, it's Magdalena Christina with Belly Omaha, and this is your Monday Shimmy Fix. Happy Monday! I hope that your week is off to a fantastic start. It's snowing here in Omaha in the middle of April, but we're going to heat it up with some hot sizzling belly dance. So here we go. Today I want to talk about weighted hip movements, and the reason being is that as I learned from different instructors, I noticed that not everybody has these in their movement vocabulary. So I want to do just a quick demonstration of weighted versus unweighted movements. So in this particular example, we're going to look at a weighted hip lift. And so I want you to unlock your knees, and we're going to come into an even deeper bend or a plie position. Honoring the arch of our back, bringing our hips to a neutral position. And so we want to make sure that we're not pitching forward even though the knees are bent in that plie position. And what you'll do is go ahead and take your right leg, and we're just going to straighten that knee up without locking the knee back. So just straighten and then come back to that bent knee position. So straighten and bend, and straighten and bend. And see how that pushes the hip up? So this is what I refer to as a weighted hip lift. And the reason that I talk about weighted is that the load-bearing leg is the leg that's doing the movement. So I could potentially take my weight off the other side and still be getting that lift here, as opposed to what I refer to as an unweighted hip lift, where my load-bearing leg is the one that's just kind of keeping me in place, and then my non-weight-bearing leg is doing the lift. So the mechanics are similar. The diagonal of your hips is the same. It's just a matter of my weight is not on this side versus now it is. Okay, so that's a weighted hip lift. Now, similar thing with what I call a weighted hip drop. And so for this one, we're just going to go into our just bent knee position. So I call this one number 1 knees. For our last movement, we used number 2 knees. This is going to be number 1, where it's just the knees unlocked. And we're going to take that hip down. It's going to push that knee forward. And of course, always be aware of what your knees will tolerate. If you have weaker knees or have injuries, this movement might not work for you. But by going into that deeper bend, it's just driving the hip straight down and down. And again, so if I'm doing this movement on this side and I'm doing a weighted variation, then I could potentially pick up this other side and still get that movement happening on the load-bearing side, as opposed to, again, an unweighted hip drop, which is kind of like sitting back into a chair. Okay, so just to do a little exercise with those, we're going to walk forward with the hip lift, and remembering that the weight is on the side that's working. So if I put my weight on here, what would be your right side, my left, I'm going to pop the hip up, or straighten the leg and pop the hip up. Straighten the leg, pop the hip up, and up, and up, and up. And we can go back with that as well. So that is a weight-bearing or weighted hip lift. Same thing with the drop. As I step on it, I'm going to take the knee into a bend and drive the hip down. And that is my weighted or weight-bearing hip drop. Now, sometimes people do have these in their movement vocabulary and they just approach them a slightly different way or call them something else. And that's perfectly fine too. Here's that lift again. But this is just a little something that you can add to your toolkit as you're looking to expand your movement vocabulary. Here's that drop again, and down, and down, and down, and down. So I hope these movements are useful to you. I'd be interested to see if they're movements that you're currently using or if you have something similar in your toolkit. As always, these tutorials are not a substitute for class with a live instructor. I have new classes starting this week. Check me out at bellyomaha.com. And until next week, happy shimmies!